A veteran mechanic, the kind you don't see anymore, with more than half a century getting his hands into engines, once told me something that at first sounded exaggerated to me, but over the years I understood that it was an uncomfortable truth. Most cars don't die of old age. They die because of their own owners, slowly, without anyone realizing it. And he didn't say it to scare. He said it because he had seen it hundreds of times. Vehicles that could have lasted for decades, condemned by small daily habits that seem harmless, but that in reality are like putting an expiration date on the engine. The curious thing is that while most cars don't even reach 100,000 kilometers without serious problems, mine has already gone well past 800,000. Not because it's a special model, not because it's unbreakable, but because I stopped making common mistakes and adopted a series of very specific habits. Today I'm going to tell you about those habits, and I'll tell you something in advance. The last ones on this list are the ones almost nobody does. The ones that make the real difference between a car that ends up in the scrapyard and one that keeps running when others have already given up. Let's start with the first one. Number 15. Changing the oil much earlier than they tell you to. If you ever followed to the letter the oil change interval stated in the manual, you already started off wrong. And it's not your fault. It's the fault of believing that the manufacturer wants your car to last forever. The reality is much simpler and less romantic. Brands design those intervals so that the engine survives through the warranty period, not so that it reaches 500,000 kilometers and much less 800,000. That's why today they talk to you about changes every 10,000, 15,000, or even 20,000 kilometers. On paper it sounds good. In real life it's a recipe for filling the engine with residue. Cold starts, short trips, urban traffic, constant stops. All of that degrades the oil much sooner than you imagine. I've opened engines that complied with the manual, and what was inside didn't look like an engine, it looked like a pot of tar. Black sludge stuck to the walls, clogged passages, scored pistons, all because of stretching an oil change beyond what it should be. My rule was clear from the beginning. Mineral oil, short and frequent changes. Synthetic oil, never stretch it to the limit. Yes, it costs a little more, but spending today on oil is avoiding spending tomorrow on rebuilding an entire engine. It's paying a small fee so you don't have to face a bill that can ruin your year. That was the first important lesson I learned. Never confuse the brand's interests with yours. They sell cars. You want yours to last. Number 14. Letting the car warm up at idle. For years I did the same thing as almost everyone else. Start the car, leave it running for several minutes so it can warm up, and only then drive off. I believed I was taking care of the engine. In reality, I was punishing it. When an engine is cold and you let it run without load, combustion is incomplete. Part of the unburned fuel ends up running down the cylinder walls and takes with it the thin film of oil that should be protecting them. The result is silent wear. It's like rubbing the internal parts with invisible sandpaper. I've seen engines with less than 70,000 kilometers ruined by this habit. Diluted oil, scratched cylinders, loss of compression. All because of a custom that many people defend, believing it's good. The truth is much simpler. The engine warms up better and faster when it works gently. You start it, wait a few seconds, and drive calmly for the first kilometers. No hard acceleration, no pushing it. That's when the oil properly reaches every corner and the parts reach their ideal temperature. Since I eliminated unnecessary idling, the wear on my engine changed completely. If you want your car to go far, stop warming it up while parked. Move it carefully and let it do its job. Number 13. Forcing the tank to fill after the click. That small gesture many people make at the gas station, believing they're gaining a bit of extra fuel, is actually an expensive trap. When the pump clicks, it's not a whim. The system is designed to leave free space in the tank, necessary so gasoline vapors can circulate correctly toward the emissions control system. When you keep squeezing the handle, what you're doing is pushing liquid fuel into a system that is only designed for vapors. Result: soaked hoses, damaged sensors, and the famous activated charcoal canister destroyed. I've seen repairs costing hundreds of euros just for not letting go of the nozzle in time, and all for trying to squeeze in a few extra milliliters. Since I understood this, I never insisted after the click again. If the pump says stop, it's stop. There's no possible savings that justify damaging a system designed to protect your car and the environment. That simple change of habit saved me money, headaches, and more than one unnecessary visit to the shop. Number 12, changing the transmission fluid even if they say it's lifetime. One of the most dangerous myths in the automotive world is the one that says transmission oil is eternal. It doesn't get changed, it doesn't get checked, it doesn't get touched. And curiously, it's the same myth that fills repair shops with destroyed transmissions. The transmission, whether manual or automatic, works under brutal pressure. Gears, internal clutches, valves, all of that moves thousands of times per minute. And every movement generates wear, even if you don't see it. That wear turns into microscopic particles that end up floating in the fluid. Over time, that clean oil turns into a kind of invisible abrasive that polishes the parts from the inside. The problem is that it gives no clear warning signs. The transmission doesn't warn you. The day it starts slipping, jerking, or making strange noises, it's already too late. I've seen cars with barely 120,000 kilometers need a new transmission because the fluid was never changed. And I've also seen spotless transmissions with more than 400,000 kilometers simply because someone had the discipline to perform basic maintenance. My rule was always the same. Periodic changes, no improvisation, using exactly the correct fluid, no experiments or compatible oils. That habit alone was one of the reasons my car kept running when many others had already passed on to a better life. Number 11, braking as if every traffic light were the last one. This point seems obvious, but reality shows that almost nobody applies it. Driving based on hard acceleration and sudden braking not only uses more fuel, it also destroys the entire braking system. Every hard stop generates heat, a lot of heat. Discs that warp, pads that glaze over, brake fluid that loses its properties. And all of that accumulates. I've seen completely warped discs on cars with less than 30,000 kilometers, not because of poor quality, but because of poor driving. The habit that changed everything was anticipation, lifting off the accelerator earlier, letting the car roll, using engine braking on long downhill stretches. Brakes are there to help, not to do all the work. Since I started driving this way, my brake pads last much longer, the discs suffer less, and fuel consumption went down without me even noticing. And when it's time to replace something, I never go for the cheapest option. Low-quality parts always end up costing more. Braking with your head not only extends the life of the brakes, it also makes driving smoother, safer, and much more efficient. Number 10. Coolant is not just colored water. Many people only remember the coolant when the car starts to overheat, or they see steam coming out from under the hood. And when that happens, it's usually already too late. Coolant fulfills two critical functions: maintaining the proper temperature and protecting the engine against internal corrosion. Modern engines, mostly made of aluminum, do not tolerate overheating well. A sudden rise in temperature can deform vital components in a matter of seconds. In addition, over the years, coolant loses its protective additives. It stops lubricating the water pump, stops protecting the radiator, and begins to allow rust to form. And not to mention mixing different types. That's like playing Russian roulette with the cooling system. I've seen entire circuits turned into a gelatinous mass from mixing incompatible fluids. Long, expensive, and completely avoidable repairs. My habit was always clear: a complete change every so often, using exactly the recommended type. No improvising, no, this is similar. That simple care kept my engine stable even under extreme conditions, and prevented breakdowns that usually appear suddenly and without warning. Number 9. Ignoring noises is covering your ears to a warning. One of the worst habits a driver can have is turning up the radio volume so as not to hear a strange noise. That solves nothing. It only delays the problem and makes it more expensive. Every sound out of the ordinary is a message, a whistle, a knock, a constant hum. The car always warns you before it breaks down, but you have to know how to listen. I've seen belts break because a simple squeal was ignored. Bearings destroy themselves because a soft hum was overlooked, and engines torn apart for not investigating a small ticking noise that seemed harmless. Once, a customer arrived with the engine practically dry of oil. The car had been sounding strange for weeks. The result was a huge repair that would have been avoided with a simple check in time. My rule was simple: any new noise gets investigated, not to panic, but to understand what's causing it. Thanks to that, my car with hundreds of thousands of kilometers still sounds solid, with no vibrations or suspicious noises. And believe me, at that age, any ignored warning can be the last one. Number 8. Treating the clutch like a footrest. If you drive a manual car, this habit can brutally shorten the life of the clutch without you realizing it. Resting your foot on the pedal even lightly is a very widespread habit, and a very destructive one. The clutch is designed to work only during gear changes. Every time you keep unnecessary pressure on it, the disc slips imperceptibly, generating heat and constant wear. That wear isn't noticeable from one day to the next, but it builds up. I've seen completely burned clutches with less than 50,000 kilometers, not because of a manufacturing defect, but because of poor driving technique. The change I made was simple and disciplined. Foot off the pedal when I'm not shifting. At traffic lights, neutral and brake. On hills, handbrake, not clutch at half travel. With that habit, I managed to exceed 300,000 kilometers with the same clutch, while others replaced it 2 or 3 times over that same distance. It's not luck, it's respect for the mechanics. A small gesture with your foot can mean thousands of euros saved. Number 7. Living with the tank on reserve. Many people believe that always driving with little fuel is a way to save money. In reality, it's one of the fastest ways to ruin the fuel pump. The pump lives inside the tank and is cooled by the gasoline itself. When the level is very low, it starts drawing in hot air and sediments that accumulate at the bottom. That causes 2 very clear things. First, the pump works hotter than it should. Second, dirt ends up reaching the filters and injectors. I've replaced pumps with very low mileage simply because the driver never filled the tank. And when the pump dies, it gives no warning. It leaves you stranded. My rule was always the same. Never go below a quarter of a tank. That keeps the pump cool, reduces wear and avoids unpleasant surprises. It may seem exaggerated, but it's one of those quiet habits that protect the car day after day. Number 6. Trusting too much in long-life spark plugs. Spark plugs are another example of marketing that many people take as absolute truth. Yes, there are spark plugs that promise to last 100,000 kilometers, but that figure is based on ideal conditions that almost no one has in real life. Cold starts, heavy traffic, short trips, and inconsistent fuel quality make spark plugs wear out much sooner. A worn spark plug doesn't just affect starting. It causes misfires, increases consumption, damages the catalytic converter, and in extreme cases can cause serious internal damage. I learned to check and replace them before they cause problems, not to wait for them to fail, but to get ahead of it. And something even more important, never use cheap imitations. Low-quality spark plugs may seem like a bargain, but I've seen engines seriously damaged by installing incorrect parts. Since I keep my spark plugs in good condition, the engine starts better, responds more cleanly, and works without unnecessary strain. Another small detail that, added to all the others, makes an enormous difference as the kilometers add up. If by now you've already realized how these habits completely change the lifespan of a car, get ready for what comes next. Because the last 5 are not just maintenance. They are decisions almost nobody makes, and that explains why some cars go far while others die young. Number 5. Ignoring engine mounts until everything vibrates. Engine mounts are one of those invisible parts that almost nobody remembers, until the car starts shaking as if it were about to fall apart. Their function is not just to hold the engine, they also absorb vibrations, keep the transmission aligned, and prevent the entire mechanical assembly from hitting the chassis. When they wear out, the engine starts moving more than it should. At first, it's a slight vibration in the steering wheel or a small jolt when starting. Many people ignore it. Big mistake. I've seen broken exhausts, split hoses, damaged radiators, and misaligned transmissions caused by mounts that no one wanted to replace in time. A relatively inexpensive part ends up causing a very costly chain reaction. My habit was to check them periodically. A simple test with the brake pressed and a light throttle blip is enough to notice if the engine moves more than normal. Replacing a mount in time costs little. Ignoring it can turn your car into a mechanical maraca that destroys itself. Number 4. Taking care of the paint and forgetting the chassis. Many people spend hours washing the bodywork, making the car shine like new. But underneath, nobody looks. And that's where the real silent enemy is. Rust, salt, moisture, accumulated mud. All of that attacks the underside of the car without making a sound. I've seen vehicles that look impeccable on the outside, but are structurally doomed underneath. Corroded suspension arms, bolts that no longer exist, weakened mounting points. When rust advances, there's no turning back. My habit was simple and consistent. Periodic washing of the underside, especially in winter or in humid areas, and preventive anti-corrosion protection. That care meant that even with hundreds of thousands of kilometers, my car's chassis remained solid. while others with less use ended up in the scrapyard not because of the engine, but because of neglecting what can't be seen. Number 3. Accepting urgent repairs without questioning. This habit doesn't kill the car directly, but it does empty your wallet while the real problems remain. Many shops, especially large ones, work with fear. This is urgent. If you don't do it now, the car could fail at any moment. And just like that, people who went in for an oil change leave with an endless list of questionable repairs. I learned a golden rule: never accept a serious diagnosis without proof or a second opinion. If something is truly urgent, it can be demonstrated. And if a shop gets annoyed because you ask questions or decide to check elsewhere, that's already an answer in itself. That healthy skepticism saved me thousands on unnecessary work and allowed me to focus on what really mattered for the car's health. Number 2. Neglecting the battery terminals. This is one of the simplest habits, and one of the most ignored. Corrosion on the battery terminals acts like an invisible plug. Current doesn't flow properly, the alternator works harder, and mysterious electrical problems begin. Erratic starts, flickering lights, sensors failing for no apparent reason. I've seen people ready to replace batteries, alternators and starters when the problem was simply accumulated sulfate. My routine was basic: periodic inspection, cleaning when needed, and protection with proper grease. 5 minutes of work that ensure the entire electrical system works as it should. In modern cars full of electronics, this detail is more important than ever. Number 1. Always use the handbrake when parking. This is, without a doubt, the most undervalued habit of all, and one of the ones that has cost the most money in avoidable repairs. Many people believe that putting the lever in P is enough, but that position doesn't lock the wheels. It locks a small mechanism inside the transmission. When you park on a slope without using the handbrake, all the weight of the car rests on that tiny part. And when it fails, the repair is anything but small. I've seen transmissions destroyed by this simple oversight. Thousands of euros for not pulling a lever or pressing a button. My sequence was always the same. First the handbrake, then the transmission. Always. No exceptions. That gesture, repeated thousands of times, saved my transmission and prevented one of the most expensive failures that exist. These habits are not magical secrets. They don't require special tools or advanced mechanical knowledge. They are daily decisions, small gestures that, added up over time, explain why some cars reach 800,000 kilometers and others don't make it past 100,000. Now I ask you, which of these habits were you already applying, and which one surprised you the most? Leave it in the comments, subscribe and hit like, because here we keep sharing what really extends the life of your car and protects your wallet